part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, everybody. It's John Tellage from the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast. Be sure to hop on with us to follow all the dramatic developments of the reigning American League Central Division champions. From game analysis to interviews to keeping tabs on who could be the next breakout star. We'll have that and much, much more right here. It's the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe here and join the fun.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
What's good, Breakers? That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast from the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, he's the NBA writer for HoopsWire.com. He's our Cavs insider, national NBA writer, Sam Amico. Sam, game 2 in the books, and the Cavs, in the words of Sam Amico, kicked buns.
Yeah, I like to keep it clean, but that's what they did. I mean, there's no question after the first quarter, it was a hammer job.
A hammer job. I like that. I don't know if that's clean, but we're gonna push it through the we're gonna push it through. Hey, also with us, John Sabol, fresh off his live remote sports anchor at Fox 8, host of Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, right here in the Press Play Podcast Network. John, you were at the game. What was the vibe like at The Rock?
Well, not only was I at the game, I was sitting right next to Sam, and it was an amazing night in so many different ways. I mean, I leaned over to Sam after the Cavs went on that big run. I said, man, this feels like the energy in this building and the way this game got out of hand. It felt like a LeBron game from those 2014, 2018 playoff teams. Place was electric.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch on TV. You're just making me jealous telling me you were sitting by Sam. So it's all good, though. It seemed like there was a shift that happened in the game, and I'm curious to see if you felt it in the arena. Very quickly, the game started off where the first game left off. Knicks were big, physical, getting rebounds. Cavs playing sloppy, and Okoro goes out with 2 fouls real quick, about 3 minutes into the game, and he doesn't sub back in. He stayed on the bench the entire rest of the game, and that seemed to, Sam, did the Cavs stumble into something here?
Well, I think that was a case of JB Bickerstaff just sticking with what was working. The guys he was playing were working. And when you do that, and, this is a playoff series, and this is a must-win game, you just stick with it, and when you talk about Danny Green finally getting an opportunity after my rant after the last game, I think that you saw him in there. Karis LeVert was on fire. So there really was no need to put Okoro back in because, look, we're on a roll. Let's not mess with the rotation too much. And I was surprised, though, to see him not get back in at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they stumbled onto something in the sense that Karis LeVert was playing probably, I don't know, guys, if not his best game as a Cav, really close to it. So, you stick with what works at this time of year, and Karis LeVert was definitely working.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best, Jeremy and Akron here. Look, you got to get a guy who can do exactly what Karis LeVert did that entire game. The way he was able to create his shot, drive to the basket, make honest defenders out of the New York Knicks. He made the New York Knicks actually go out and defend another player that freed up Donovan Mitchell and then gave Darius Garland the space to create and do what he does best. I tell you, Sam, I agree, totally agree. One of Karis LeVert's best game as a Cleveland Cavalier.
You need to be on Broadway. You
How
need
was
to
that
do
for
that,
Jeremy and I?
That was perfect. Dead on.
Either that or like first take or something, because that was spot on.
Maybe not Broadway, but first take.
John,
Yeah.
Another tough game for the Coro Hive. You aren't his biggest fan. What was your observations just from Bickerstaff's rotations and some playing time you saw for the Cavs tonight?
Well, it's interesting. I asked JB on Tuesday at practice, basically, look, like you're getting a guy, and not getting any production from your bench in game one between LeVert and Osman, two guys that are historically streaky shooters that did not do anything in game one. And Okoro, who was in the starting lineup, didn't do anything either.
Yeah.
What was he going to have to do to manipulate and help that bench, i.e. Danny Green? And his response was, guys know they're available and we'll make adjustments as they go. And I kind of took that as, well, game one of a series, especially for a team that's very inexperienced, is feeling everyone out, especially when it comes to the physicality aspect of things. And so it was a good test to see who would be available. If someone gets hot, we're going to stick with them and just, completely get away from the game plan, which actually benefited him because Okoro got in foul trouble early. He's only played 3 minutes. He had 2 fouls, and then Karis LeVert got hot. So in that aspect of things, if it's not broken, there's no need to fix it. Just keep with a hot hand. And you're not going to expect LeVert to drop 24 points off the bench in game 3. I mean, I'm not either. I looked at Sam at the game. I said, if I would have told you Karis LeVert would have more points than Donovan Mitchell at that point in the game, you would have said I was crazy. But that was exactly what ended up happening, So JB after the game kind of alluded to they were going with what was working. And you didn't see that very much with the JB Bickerstaff team in the past in the regular season. It felt like sometimes Isaac Okoro was forced too much on us, but he kind of went away from that and stuck with a hot hand. Now, if Karis LeVert didn't get hot, I don't know what he would have done. That's a convenient, not a convenient excuse, but a convenient way out of his original game plan. But you know what? Hey, it worked, and they won, and now we moved to New York.
So we kind of just jumped into it without really kind of stating what happened in the game. The Cavs destroyed the New York Knicks 107-90. It wasn't even close pretty much from the middle of the second quarter on. Cavs took control and never looked back. They even the series at 1. It is now a best-of-5 series heading back to historic MSG Madison Square Garden in New York City. Game 2 is going to be Friday, April 21st at Madison Square Garden on ABC. Game 4 Sunday, April 23rd at MSG, which puts game 5 right now, Wednesday, 27th in Cleveland. Sam, what is the number one story from this game tonight?
The number one story to me was obviously Darius Garland.
Yes.
Because he had, you're talking about the second playoff game for Garland, just an about face from game 1 where he looked hesitant, was a little bit stunned, it seemed, in game 1 with the Knicks blitzing him and running a longer defender at him as a second defender. He was ready for it tonight, especially when he got going a little bit in the second quarter. You could just see, you could see his confidence. You could see it on his face, like, okay, I'm taking over. I'm going to do whatever is necessary, and just playing with a great deal of confidence. And the fact that, he had 26 points at halftime, 15 in the second quarter, really put the game away. Now, obviously defensively, they were much better. It was very clear they were much more determined, rebounding the basketball and being more cognizant of, boxing out and being more physical. I thought they matched the Knicks physically, but more than anything, obviously, the story was Darius Garland, and good for him, because if the Cavs can get the type of performance or close to it, obviously you're going to get a great performance from Mitchell, which he still had a great performance, even though he didn't have to score 40 or 30 or 20. If you could get something like that from another guy, whether it's Garland or LeVert, they're going to come back and, they're going to take command of this series.
Garland led all scorers in the game with 32. John, it was beautiful to watch. It was like he was growing up right before our eyes. It was the Darius Garland game. Will this be known as the Darius Garland game, John, and other people other than just my mind? Will other people refer to this as the Darius Garland game?
Well, I think it's going to be referred to the Darius Garland game for a few days until we get to game 3, and hopefully he can have another big game. I mean, the Cavs needed a second scorer, not, with Donovan Mitchell being the main guy, who no one failed to help him out in game 1. And I thought it would either be Mobley or Garland, and tonight it was Garland. I mean, he was so down on himself after game 1 that he said in the press conference, post-game press conference today that, Donovan Mitchell and a lot of the Cavs players and coaches kept just telling him, shoot the ball, be aggressive, be assertive, get in the game. And during film sessions of watching game 1, and that's exactly what he was doing. I mean, he had open shots. He acknowledged, guys, that during game 1, while watching the film, that there were missed opportunities for him to shoot. And I don't think he attempted maybe one shot in the fourth quarter in game 1.
He didn't attempt any shot in the fourth quarter.
Didn't attempt any. And he recognized that. So he knew he had to be aggressive. And he acknowledged it. And Donovan Mitchell, and I witnessed it at practice earlier in the week, sat down with him for an extended time at the post-practice where they're doing these shoot-arounds when the media is allowed to come and watch. And he sat there and talked with him for a long time. Probably was maybe half hour, 40 minutes, sit down. And Donovan was giving him all of the confidence and reassurance to shoot the ball. And, Mitchell acknowledged it tonight too, that, hey, this is a guy that has all the talent in the world that could be a leader on this team. He's young and he's growing, and we need him to be that next big option. And we've seen it, of course, in his short career, but now on the biggest stage, I think he's now starting to learn that I can do this. And a big game like this can be dividends for them going forward.
Yeah, I know round 1, game 2 is hard to have a legacy game where it's like that's on part of your player history, right? You think back of other playoff games, like the Klay Thompson game where he scored so many points against the Thunder or whatever, or the Kyrie LeBron when they both scored 40 in the final. I know the stakes aren't like that, but this is why I think this is important. Because you look at what's going over on the West in the West playoffs, Sam. You have the young Kings, who I don't know, young isn't the right word. You have, the first time playoff Kings, right? And De'Aaron Fox, who is showing the NBA that they actually belong here and they are competitive here, and they don't need some of those reps in the playoffs to be competitive. They're taking it to the defending champion Warriors. And I think there was a huge letdown on week 1 in game 1 in Cleveland, right? I mean, you have all of this last year. Oh, we wish we could have gotten to the playoffs for those reps, and oh man, we completely fell on our face in the play-in game tournament last year, and then we come out game 1 flat against the Knicks, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? And to have Darius Garland come out and have a statement game that not only shows the Cavs and the fans that, hey, we're going to be okay, I got you, but shows the league that, hey, I can take control of a game, I can do this and be the best player in the court. Sam, when he put on a Superman cape and went to dunk over the entire Knicks team, I jumped out of my couch. I couldn't believe it. I was I'd never see him do that even in warm-ups. Whoa, he was on a whole other level tonight. This was huge for so
Donovan
many
Mitchell,
reasons.
Yeah. Chase, Donovan Mitchell said in the post game, I don't know if you heard it, he was shocked. He said he's never seen Darius do that. And he said to him on the court, what was it, Sam? It was, hey, whatever you did in the pregame treatment, do it again on Friday.
I mean,
yeah.
And so I understand it's not going to go down in Cavs lore as a Darius Garland game, but gosh darn it, it was the Darius Garland game to me, and one that's, I think, going to raise the ceiling and continue the trajectory of his career, Sam.
Well, that's just it. And you said he showed it to the NBA. He showed it to, the Cavs. He also showed it to himself.
Yeah.
And that's really a big thing that, hey, I can do this. I'm going to be, and everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of guys enter the playoffs for the first time as young players and have a game like Darius Garland had in game 1, which was, okay, this is a different kind of basketball. It's a little more intense. It's a lot more physical. And it did. It took him a game to adjust, but it can be known as the Darius Garland game if it's something that's sustainable. If you can come out and you don't have to have 32 points or 26 in the first half, but if you can come out and outplay Jalen Brunson as he did tonight and do it again in New York, then people will remember that's the game that Darius Garland really came into his own. So it was a downer in game one. Anytime you have home court advantage in the playoffs, you want to walk away with a win in the series because you fought all year the regular season to get home court advantage. So it was one of those performances that, you're right, Chase, you're probably not going to, mark it down in Cavaliers lore, but you could, if it's, again, it doesn't have to be at that level, but if it continues to, okay, Darius Garland's an all-star now because of these playoff appearances, there's no doubt about it. This guy is a guy, you're going to have to reckon with for a long time. He could really put his stamp on this series, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It did seem like he was growing up right before our eyes. It was incredible to watch. Not only was his ups like that, but his defensive intensity. He was scrambling. He was making awesome passes. It was just, all his bag of tricks on full display. It was great, John. I'm glad we all agree. Number one, and he won the Junkyard Dog Award for the Cavs in post game. The Cavs have this new Junkyard Dog Award playoff edition.
Yep.
So good job, Darius Garland. Well deserved. Number two, John. I think another story of this game has to be the team defense and the physicality of the Cavs against the Knicks, especially after what we saw in week one. I don't want to say congratulated or recognized, but I did receive comments on my thickness versus the twigness analysis from game one. And so, John, it was a different case tonight. The physicality of the Cavs, bringing it to the Knicks, holding them to 90 points. They said this on the broadcast, the second fewest points scored Knicks in playoff history. I don't know how true that is.
I didn't know that.
But 90 points is impressive in this day and age, NBA, at any time, let alone in the playoffs, John. I think that deserves some recognition.
Well, the thickness and twigness wasn't a factor for the Cavs, at least in the last three quarters. I'll be honest. The first quarter, like you said, you alluded to, Chase, in the beginning of the podcast, it kind of, left off from what happened in game one, where the Cavs are kind of getting bullied around a little bit. And I looked at Sam and I'm like, here we go again. And then finally, the second quarter, end of the first quarter, they went on a little run, and then obviously they made a big run in the second quarter. You saw Jared Allen pick up his intensity, and same thing with Evan Mobley. You saw those two guys who got bullied. I will say it. They got bullied on the playground in game one. You saw them, though, tonight really be more aggressive and not back down and really attack the rim. Not afraid to throw an elbow here and there. Give credit to the refs. They let them, play a little bit more physical, and it showed. And I think Darius and Karras both fed off of that. Jared Allen said earlier in the week, "Oh yeah, we can flip. Is it as easy as flipping a switch to be more physical?" He said yes. I was a little skeptical because there are times, and we've said it on podcasts before, that the Cavs, especially Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, have been out physical by certain players in the NBA, like a Joel Embiid or Giannis. And we saw it with Julius Randle and some of the other Knicks players. So I was a little skeptical, like, can you really turn it on? But you know what? Give them credit. They flipped it, and they did it. And I know they've done it and adapted in the regular season in certain cases. I was wondering if that was going to happen, and it did. And it showed also on the rebounding, too. The Cavs out-rebounded the Knicks this time, as opposed to game one getting owned on the glass. So everything was a perfect storm. Everything that went wrong in game one went right for the Cavaliers. And Donovan Mitchell, one thing we haven't talked about is I think he's got a playoff career high of assists that he dished out today. What was it, 13?
13 assists.
I mean, he distributed and took a lot of the load off. And, Karras and obviously Darius held the load there. But, the Knicks are starting to double him a little bit. And that opened up some scoring options and really opened up the lane, too, for Allen and Mobley to be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive side as well.
It did seem that some of these loose balls that went the Knicks' way, game one, ended up in the Cavs' hands for this game, which sometimes that's just basketball. The way the ball bounces and you get a deflection here, a lucky bounce there, and all of a sudden you get 3 stops in a row and you can turn the game a little bit. Sam, what was the physicality like in person? It seemed like the Cavs were able to kind of have their way from the TV broadcast. Was that the vibe? It didn't seem there were many people intimidated tonight.
No, and I thought, an example of that from just a couple of possessions watching Evan Mobley, he didn't have a huge night or anything, but he had 13 points, 13 rebounds. And there was a couple possessions where I thought, you know what, Mobley had the ball and he'd be backing in. And I think we even talked about it, John, was where, he would get the ball and Randall was just bumping him and pushing him and trying to move him off of his spot, trying to make him uncomfortable. And not always did Mobley make the shot, but he at least took the shot, forced himself to get a good look at the basket by fighting back for that position. And I thought that was a real telling sign because in the game one, when they were getting physical, whether it was Mobley, Allen, Garland, anybody, even the backcourt, other than Mitchell, they were giving the ball up. And It was good to see that the Cavs were not doing that. And Mobley, he's gonna have one of these games, I think, and that's good news for the Cavs moving forward in this series. Is that I think that at one point, him being aggressive and being physical is really going to pay off and not backing down. So I think just overall, Mobley was a good example, but overall, Cavs just was like, we're not going to you go ahead and play your Knicks style basketball and be physical like Tom Thibodeau wants, but we're not going to back down or shy away from that this time. We're going to try to match that. And I thought that the Cavs did without taking themselves out of their own game. So, good lessons to learn from this one.
And a couple other things too on top of that. Here's the thing that was interesting when it comes to Mobley, Sam, and we did talk about it during the game. Every time that he was backing down Julius Randle and he kept going stronger straight up and tried to get a little bit more, not cutesy, but creative with his spins and pivots and everything, which you really didn't see much in game one. And when he would go up in game one, his placement on the court, it was almost as if he got a little overwhelmed in the moment where he let away his fundamentals go. He got rattled. I think he did. Because when he was when he was trying to post up Randall, he just getting pushed out of the way. And that's why he was never hitting the window when he was trying to do like an easy layup or post up or anything like that. And he kept missing those bunny shots in game one. Game two tonight, while he was in much better position, it seemed like his footwork was a lot better down low. And in addition to that, if the ball got poked away and he went and if he regathered himself, he still went at Randall. And Randall's still a stronger guy, but it didn't seem to rattle him. It almost as if Mobley had more confidence once the physicality picked up and once the Cavs kind of got that momentum. And what I'm interested to see is he like almost like a ticking time bomb here where he's waiting to go off on a game here in this series? I mean, it's starting to come together for him. I'm not saying he's going for 40, but are we going to get like a 20 and 10 output from him? Because, he's got the skills and he just needs a little more oomph. And I think tonight was that night to give him that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Mobley has a 30 and 15 night in him for sure.
I would love it.
Yeah, I think that's what's really cool about this team is Mitchell's the one, of course, but any night you can have Mobley go for 20, 25. You can have Garland go off for 30, right? You can have LeVert go off for 20 off. I mean, Chetty could hit 4 straight threes and all of a sudden he has 15. And so I totally, and I think they've intentionally fed Mobley to try to see if he can get to that way. But yeah, it is kind of encouraging to see him kind of take those steps, Sam.
Yeah, for sure. And the more I watched him tonight, the more I thought he's very capable of having one of those games because mentally, you could see emotionally, he was very locked in and was not overwhelmed by the moment. And that's really what you worry about with young players in this situation.
Yep. I asked. I was at Cavs practice this week, and obviously, my brother and I just had Daniel Gibson on our podcast, and I talked with him at practice, and I asked him, "What do you contribute the game one miscues on the defensive end, lack of scoring, bench points out, rebounding? Do you credit that to nerves?" And he quickly said, "No." He's like, I don't think it was so much them being nervous. I think it was more or less them not knowing what to expect with that physicality and then the whole, emotion of the game. And there's so many guys there that were wide-eyed. Booby noticed that. He says, wait till you see game 2, you'll see the adjustments going forward. And he specifically pointed out Mobley to look at in terms of a guy who could be a little bit more aggressive down the road. I mean, in his career, obviously, in the sky's the limit with him. But in this series, as somebody that could feed off of that if they can get to that point. Well, guess what? They got to that point in game 2. Can his prediction and outlook come through fruition in games 3 and possibly 4? We'll see. But the whole feeling out period of game 1 was first off, dead on. And I think we all kind of overreacted. Fans did too, of doom and gloom. And then we see what the adjustments they made for this one.
All right. Any other stories from the game? Is Brooke Lopez going to get a mention here? Or Robin Lopez? I dislike him so much, I don't even know which Lopez it is.
Why do you dislike him?
He's just a big oof. He takes up so much room. Someone's going to twist their ankle over his big old leg that's not in a chair because they're chasing after a loose ball. He's slow as dirt. Everyone ironically cheers for him when he goes in and scores a buck. He scored 4 points today. Look like just an old grandpa at the Y playing this playoff basketball game. It was just, he's not very good. Sorry.
John Sabol said that I look like an old grandpa walking up the stairs to press row. So,
yeah, I think what Sam is not telling you is that last night in his men's league, he dropped 25 and 10, and he was still recovering.
Okay.
That was 10 rebounds, not 10 assists, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, definitely story of the game. Darius Garland, awesome job. DG and the team defense and physicality, the two big stories from this game. Bottom line, it's even up, best of 5 series, and it's the first of 3 wins. And so let's see if the Cavs can. I like the Cavs' chances to win 3 of 5 from the Knicks. Hey, let's do little tales from the group chat. I want to share some things that were texted during the game. Again, all of these, I will not say who said what. We'll just kind of hear them, and then maybe that'll spark some conversation. It'll just be at least a fun look back in time. This next level Garland is huge. That was, I think, that got it started. Ballin was a response to that. Garland growing up before our very eyes. DG has that dog in him. Danny Green's shot is so smooth. Makes no sense why he hasn't played. All right, here we go. Another tough game for the Okoro Hive. This is the Levert we were expecting, but only see him once a month. Levert is playing so well. JB going to sit starters. He should. And then moments later was a big spill under the basket between Jarrett Allen and Julius Randle, which was, I mean, I felt like the arena kind of went silent for a little bit.
Both of the coaches should have sat their starters at about the 5-minute mark.
Yeah.
Sam and I were talking about that. That was silly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm ready to admit it. These jerseys are shit. Like, what even are they trying to do? It's not a classic look. The basketball in the chest logo looks awful.
Just for the record, I don't want to be tied to that. I did not say that.
And you know what?
I don't want the phone call.
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna take this one here. I did not say that either, because we all know how I feel about.
I did not say that, and everything. Jeremy did not say that. So one of the 4 of us is lying.
Well, I want to admit it.
Jerseys, but go ahead.
Yeah, we all know how I feel about everything. So, I mean, it wasn't me. I'll Shaggy. It wasn't me.
All right, so here's another one. What were they chanting? There was a couple times during the game you could tell that The Rock was chanting something, and it was hard to make it out from the broadcast. The response, "New York sucks," which is just warms my heart to hear. It seemed pretty loud.
Well, I told this to Sam Chase. The minute the Knicks go on a run in one of these games, game 3 or 4, and the Cavs lose, because I think what will happen is I think they'll split both of these games. You're going to hear a Cleveland sucks chant now as a response at Madison Square Garden. That will happen.
Bring it. That's just going to inject life into Spider's veins. Oh my gosh. Have a whole arena chanting Cleveland sucks for Mitchell, and that's just watch him drop 50 points.
That wouldn't be the first time either, but
that's true.
Whatever.
And then another one. Why are the starters still in?
That was a question of the night after, the Cavs took command there, or really in command in the middle of the fourth quarter. But JB Bickerstaff kept the starters in, but so did Tom Thibodeau. So I don't know what they're doing. Maybe we don't know what we're talking about, but
the broadcast made another good point. That's how Derrick Rose injured his knee against the 76ers. Because Thibodeau left him in. And so he was on the bench watching it all happen.
Yeah.
Because
he should have been in there.
On the Knicks. I mean, he should have. Why was Randall playing that? It's ridiculous. We're up 30 with like 6 minutes to go. Save your legs, pull your important people. And Garland was going to check back in. Mitchell hit that free throw line elbow jumper, and Garland was like at the check-in table.
Huh?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was a little perplexed by that.
Yeah,
but they have their reasons.
Well, hey, that was Tales from the group chat.
Probably not going to tell us because we're not going to ask.
That was Tales from the group chat. Again, all of those, everyone signed an NDA here, and so we cannot disclose who said what, but that's what was said in the Cavs on the Break group chat. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking about the series outlook and share a little bit more concerns. But stick around, Cavs on the Break. John Sabol, Sam Amico. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. It's John Tellage from the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast. Be sure to hop on with us to follow all the dramatic developments of the reigning American League Central Division champions. From game analysis to interviews to keeping tabs on who could be the next breakout star. We'll have that and much, much more right here. It's the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe here and join the fun.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sabol.
And I'm Scott Sabol, and we're hosts of the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sabol Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
everybody. I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
All right, we are back here, fourth quarter here on our playoff press edition of the Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Game 2, Cavs 107-90 victory of the New York Knicks. Sam, series outlook. We've talked about it before the jump. Best of 5 series. It's a race to 3 wins. How are you feeling about the series?
Yeah, I mean, just watching tonight makes me think, if the Cavs had won in a squeaker like they'd been playing like all game like they'd played in the first quarter tonight, I wouldn't have been feeling very good about it. But the fact that Garland got going, LeVert got going, Mitchell kind of took a step back in the sense that he was able to take a step back from scoring and became distributor, and the other guys responded, really has me more believing in the Cavs than I was after game 1. I'm with John. If I had any kind of feel for this, I would think that they would split New York, which really is kind of good news for the Cavs if they do that, because guess what? Then all of a sudden it's down to a 3-game series and you have 2 of those at home. So, when I home than they were on the road, the record, and sure enough, they were a game worse at home than they were on the road. I think John, they were 24-18 on the road or something like that, 20 something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, 24-17 on the road, 23-18 at home. So, yeah, I mean, it was a game difference. In other words, they're not a dominant home team, and that bodes well for the Cavs. So, I think there's probably a good shot it's going to go 7. I mean, that's just obviously a guess, but if the Cavs get a split in New York, I think they will. I think they're sitting pretty. So that's kind of the way I'm viewing it right now, is split series 2-2. And we all kind of said this, that it's probably going to go 6 or 7. And I don't think that's changed after the first 2 games. I think that's, got the makings for a long series.
So Sam, what's your prediction before we jump to John here?
Well, I predicted before the series Cavs in 7, and I'll stick with that.
Cavs in 7. Sabol, series outlook, man. How you feeling about the best of 5 series against the Knicks?
I said Cavs in 6 before, and I think they're going to split games 3 and 4. I guess if I had to adjust it, I think I'd say Cavs in 7. I just still think if the Cavs get hot scoring without Donovan Mitchell, they have way more talent than New York does on the roster. They just have more options. New York's a bigger team. They're more physical. Cavs are a better defensive team. The one thing we didn't touch on, guys, is the fact that the Cavs have held opponents to under 100 points in the regular season, 20 sometimes this season. They're a better defensive team. I know it didn't show much in game 1, but I still think they win this series because of what happened tonight. They put more faith, because I was a little down after game 1. But, the fact that they got hot and they handled the Knicks as well as they did tonight puts more faith into it. I'm curious to see, though, if I have some reservations, is you're not getting repeat production like that from Karis LeVert in game 3 or 4. I'm predicting that. You're not going to get that big of a production. I hope it happens. I hope I'm wrong. But who's going to be that next person? Is it going to be a Mobley? Is Mitchell going to bring that his production back up with another Garland performance? You need 2 big scorers in the playoffs like this, and it proved that in game 1, and you kind of had it here in game 2. The one thing I do want to say, though, real quick, is tonight marked a major point in this franchise history, and I told this to Sam, and kind of surprising when you think about it, Chase. It was the first time the Cavaliers have won a playoff game without LeBron James on the roster since the 1998 playoffs in the first round, when they beat the Indiana Pacers and they lost that game. It lost that series in 5.
Wow.
So interesting when you really think about occasions historically wise with this game.
Yeah. So your final prediction?
I still got Cavs. I'm going to say adjusted to Cavs in 7.
Cavs in 7. I'm so glad you guys are on the Cavs train. Here's my prediction. I think this was a huge confidence boost for the team. I think they're going to go into New York. I think they're going to win game 3 in New York, and they're going to start seeing, we can close the series out at home. I think game 4 is going to go into overtime. I think the Cavs are going to squeak one out because the Knicks can't make their free throws at home. And I think the Cavs are going to take the series in 5 next Wednesday. Cavs in 5, baby. That was my prediction at the start, and I'm sticking with it. I think they're going to take both games in New York, and we're going to close it out at home. Cavs in 5.
Well, the Knicks are certainly capable of imploding that way. So I think any of us could potentially be John and I both picked in 7, but I think it could go any way. I really do. I think right now, with the way the Cavs have kind of established themselves, it's hard to argue with, Chase. So usually it's easy to argue with you, but tonight it's hard.
Well, that does it for this episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. Follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Catch all of his works and writings at hoopswire.com at Wire Hoops. You can follow John on Twitter at John_Sabol. Guys, who wins the Junkyard Dog Award tonight? Who do you guys think?
I vote John Sabol. I vote John Sabol.
John Sabol, congratulations. Junkyard Dog Award tonight.
You know why I vote John Sabol? Not because of anything he said on the podcast, but because he gave me his 2015 P90X workout routine as we sat on press row and watched the game.
Chase, we were reminiscing about old workouts back in the day.
Yeah.
And we were reminiscing about some of that, and Sam was so interested in it. I'm like, Sam, you're about 10 years too late, but let's go with this stuff.
Yo.
You know what else? He got mad at me because I wanted Splenda in my coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I did yell at him for that.
Yeah. We were definitely not winning the Junkyard Dog Award drinking Splenda in your coffee.
No, there's a little Cavs on the Break behind the scenes for everybody.
Yeah, there you go. Well, John, any final words, man, on your Junkyard Dog Award playoff edition?
Well, I got to say, this Junkyard Dog playoff edition is spectacular. It's it's no longer the Cavs C. It's the new secondary logo of the old CAVS and the gold-plated diamonds edition. If you didn't see Darius Garland rocking it afterwards in the locker room, I've got it now. Not really, but I wish I did, because that thing is massive.
Yeah.
And I hope the Cavs have a replica on the team shop, because I know Chase will buy that for all of us here on the Cavs on the Break podcast family. But yeah, the thing was pretty cool.
Yeah. You know, I'm a little sad. I thought my Jeremy and Akron impression was definitely a shoe-in for the.
Oh yeah,
but
that was
nope. Don't give me that pity, Sam. Do not pity me.
You know what, Chase? I mentioned when you did that, you're good for first take. And then after I said that, I'm like, you know what? You know who he sounds like? You
Jim
sound
Rome.
like Mel. No, you a little Jim Rome, but I think you sound more like Mel Kiper.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. I could see that.
All right. Well, it's so good to see you guys, especially after a Cavs victory. I hope to be up there to see you guys soon. You guys are the best. Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.